Today, we're continuing our conversation about consent with our senior students. Just a heads up for those of you who may have trauma triggers related to sexual assault or sexual violence. Later in the video, I will be giving some statistics related to the prevalence of sexual violence. So practice self-care as you need to. If you need to skip part or all of this video, of course, that is fine. You take care of you. Hi, I'm Nadine, Thornhill sexuality educator. Welcome back to my series, Save Sex Ed, where I teach every sex education module from Ontario's 2015 Health and Phys Ed curriculum. If this is your first time here, then you can click on the eye above me and you can learn more about this series. And you can also click the subscribe button down below. Be sure to click the bell, that way you will get a notification every time I upload a new video. The Health and Phys Ed curriculum for grades 1 through 8 outline the following learning objectives for grade 8. Demonstrate an understanding of aspects of sexual safety, including the concept of consent. Analyze the impact of violent behaviors, including dating violence and gender-based violence. Those two learning objectives are certainly related, but they're still distinct. So today I'm going to give you two activities. You can do them in the same class if you have the time, or you can do them as completely separate lessons. For the first activity, you're going to need something to write on, either newsprint, a chalkboard, a whiteboard, and you will need things to write with. So choose the complementary writing implement of your choice. Start by writing the word consent on your board or your paper. Next, ask the group, what are some feelings or behaviors that are related to consent? So this part of the activity is just about brainstorming. That means anything goes, any word can go up there, everything is valid, there are no judgments at this point in the exercise. You can have your students just call out the words and you can write them down either in a list or you can do it, randomly, kind of popcorn style. Each group's list is going to look a little bit different. But some words that often pop up doing this exercise are things like respect, compassion, fairness, communication, talking, happiness. And you may also get some words with less positive connotations, things like pressure, awkwardness, scary, fear of rejection, all of those things. So like I said, anything goes, put it all up there on the board or the paper. Next, explain to the group that you want to pare down the list and land on 4 key concepts that they feel are related to consent. So you're going to go back through the list, read each word, and ask the class if they feel that that particular word should be included in the list of 4. Encourage healthy discussion and debate as long as they keep it respectful, and explain that the words that do not make the list are still valid, but just for the purpose of the exercise, we want to narrow it down to sort of the top 4. Get your class's input and diplomatically remove the words that they don't like as much or that won't work for the next part of the activity. Now you have your list of 4 key concepts related to consent. And again, this is going to look different for different groups, but for our purposes, let's say that the 4 words we've landed on are Next, you're going to divide your class into 4 groups. Explain that each group is going to be taking a closer look at one of those 4 key concepts. Give each group a sheet of newsprint, or if you don't have newsprint, you can use regular paper. You're going to ask them to analyze and answer the following 4 questions. Why is this concept an important part of consent? What can this look like in practice? How does this concept contribute to healthy relationships with friends, family, peers, and/or sexual or romantic partners? What can happen if this is absent in a relationship? Give your groups, 20 to 30 minutes to complete this part of the exercise and encourage, real nuanced discussion and answers. Once everyone is finished, give each group 5 to 7 minutes to present their analysis to the rest of the class or the rest of the group. The next part of the activity has to do with dating violence. Another term people use is intimate partner violence, and I'll be using the two interchangeably. You're going to use all the same materials as you had for the first activity, so some kind of board or newsprint and your writing implement. Start by sharing the following definition of dating violence with your group. The use of physical, sexual, emotional, verbal, or financial abuse for the purpose of gaining and maintaining control and power over another in an intimate or romantic relationship. Ask your group if they agree with this definition. If they don't, ask them if there is anything they would like to add and if there is anything they would like to remove. Mention that anyone can be a victim of dating violence. However, in Canada, women are 4 times as likely as men to experience intimate partner violence. Gay, lesbian, and bisexual people also experience intimate partner violence, as do trans and non-binary folk. And in this case, violence can include behaviors that involve things like non-consensually outing a partner or restricting or denying that partner access to care or support they need in relation to their sexual or gender identity. Next, you're going to read a few short relationship scenarios, or you can also write them down if you have folks in your group who are hearing impaired. Ask your students or your group to share by a show of hands whether or not they think that this behavior constitutes abuse. After the class has given their opinion, give a brief explanation as to why the behavior is abusive or not. I will have a full list of the scenarios and the explanations on my website. The link is above me. It will also be down below. But for now, I will read out a few of the scenarios. Your partner takes up a lot of your time. When you want to do things with family or friends, they try to talk you out of it, saying, well, I just want you all to myself. Your partner will not do things they don't want to do, even when they know it would make you really happy. They get extremely angry with you. They yell and they scream and they explain that it's your fault for provoking them. The final part of the activity is a brainstorm. With your students, you're going to come up with a bill of dating rights. So ask them, what are your rights when it comes to dating style relationships? Put all of their answers up on the board, and if time allows, you can have a brief discussion about them. So again, the answers may vary, but some things I think are great to include are: you have a right not to be in a relationship. You have a right to feel physically and emotionally safe. You have a right to be spoken to with respect. You have a right to decide what's right for you. You have a right to other friendships and other relationships. You have a right to honesty. You have a right to disagree. You have a right to break up. You have a right to establish and assert your own boundaries. You have a right to fun and enjoyment. You have a right to consent. For these activities, I feel it is critical to have a clear and comprehensive set of safer space guidelines before you start. And I can hear some of you out there rolling your eyes at the term safer space. But the reality is that some students will have legitimate trauma triggers around this subject matter. So give them the space to have as much agency over their self-care as possible, including being able to leave the activity for a time or for the entire class if that's at all possible. As you're facilitating the lesson, keep an eye out for any group members who may seem, especially affected, particularly withdrawn, notably emotional, and check in with them afterwards if you can. At home, you can use media, TV, songs, movies to prompt conversations with your tweens and your younger teens about where consent is present and where consent is absent. We actually see a real lack of consent portrayed in movies, TV shows, and even songs, and we see it portrayed as being romantic, particularly when it is a man pursuing a woman. So use these as opportunities to talk to your kids about why is it portrayed this way, what might happen in real life, Why do we think of these things as being romantic instead of inappropriate? You can also model consent for your kids. You can communicate with them about, how you touch each other and show affection. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that every single time you want to touch them that you have to explicitly say, "Can I give you a hug?" Although that's fine if that's how your family rolls. But you can even do things as simple as, holding your arms open instead of just immediately engulfing them in a hug. You can do things like pay attention to their body cues. So, if you hug them or touch them and they sort of pull away or flinch, respect that. You can also establish your own boundaries. Sometimes as parents, particularly if we have many kids or we're doing things like maybe we have a job where we're being touched a lot, sometimes we don't feel like being touched, and it's okay to say to your kids, if they come to hug you or touch you, to say, "You know what? I just need a little bit of space right now." You can also do things like ask or check in before you post pictures of them or write things about them on social media. Now, here are your conversation prompts for the day. What would you do if you wanted to do something physical with a crush or a date, like kiss or make out? What would you want them to do if they wanted to kiss or make out with you? Why do we sometimes feel awkward or uncomfortable telling the people we like or have crushes on about what we want? Why is it important to practice communicating with our partners or our crushes about what we want, even when it does feel uncomfortable? Some great resources include videos like Maybe Doesn't Mean Yes by Amaze.com, Tea and Consent, and Jam by Karen B.K. Chan. I will link to all of those down below. The website drawtheline.ca has a lot of great resources around bystander intervention when somebody witnesses sexual harassment or violence, and they do include some resources that would be appropriate for youth in this age group. So I will also link to that down below. And finally, there are some fact sheets with interesting statistics. One is measuring sexual violence in Canada, and another one is a stat sheet on intimate partner violence in LGBTQ relationships from Rainbow Health Ontario. So those will be down below for you as well. In the comments below, let me know if there is, a TV show or movie or a song that you feel does a good job of portraying consent in relationships. A show I particularly like in that regard is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. The first season, they're a little iffy around consent, but then they really do a good job of kind of reeling it in and portraying relationships that are respectful and consensual. So check that series out if you haven't. It's one of my favorites. That's all for now. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you really soon. Bye. You can help me continue creating free sex ed content by supporting me on Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you'll get access to all sorts of goodies, so head on over to patreon.com/Nadine Thornhill or click the link down in the description below.